All right, everyone, we're going to get started this afternoon. I want to welcome you to our session today called Tips and Tricks for Quizzes in Brightspace. I'm your host, Sarah, and I'm a success coach here at D2L. I've been with D2L for about 2 years, but I've been a user of Brightspace for about 7 years. So I love the elements of my job that allow me to help teachers learn best practices about Brightspace, and I'm excited to show you those in relation to the quizzes tool today. Just some housekeeping items before we get started. I'm excited to share that the Q&A pod is open for questions, and I have some team members here with me today to help field those questions, and we'll also do a question time at the end. Any links that might need to be shared to answer those questions will be shared in the chat part of the platform, not the Q&A, just to clarify that. Any additional questions, I'd love for you to direct to our Success Coach email, any ones that we don't get today or anything requiring further clarification. And as always, the recording of today's session, as well as the slide deck that I'm presenting on, will be available on the Teaching and Learning website that you went to sign up for this session. So the recording and the deck with some resources that are linked at the end will be made available to you in the coming days. So our agenda for this afternoon, we're going to start as always by understanding some terms, then we're going to review the learning objectives. I want to talk a little bit about the quizzes tool and question library before we move into a live demo. And then, as I mentioned, we'll leave you with those resources at the end. So just understanding some terms to help us all get on the same page. D2L is our company name, and Brightspace is our product name. So that's the platform that we use if I refer to it as that during this time. And the Brightspace community I wanted to draw attention to is an awesome space online for teachers and D2L staff to connect and help answer each other's questions. You can network with other peers in education, and it's a great space to check out other resources if you haven't engaged in that already. So our learning objectives for today's session is that hopefully by the end of today's session, you'll be able to navigate and use the question library. You'll be able to create a quiz and add a question pool. You'll be able to adjust the settings for different types of assessments, and you'll also be able to grade a quiz. So just to start with an introduction, the quizzes tool is the name of our tool used for any timed assessment with questions. So whether that's a weekly quiz, a practice quiz, a midterm exam, a final exam, any assessment with questions is in the quizzes tool. And then the question library is a place inside the quizzes tool to create questions, organize them, store them, and create them there for use throughout your course. So the reason I mentioned the question library, and I want to talk more about it today, is because there's various benefits to using the question library to then fuel into your quizzes. For example, you can organize and create all the different questions in one place. Randomization is possible through question pools. That's a workflow that we're going to walk through today. Edits that you make to these questions will be reflected in the other places that they're there. And you can also get statistics on attempts of the questions through the reports. So it's a great baseline to create your quizzes from. So that's all I wanted to say before we jumped into the platform. So this time we're going to jump into the live demo portion. So hopefully you can see my Brightspace course here. I'm just on our home page here. You can see I have this fun Bitmoji classroom. I have my navigation bar at the top here. It might look different than what you have, but that's because Brightspace is customizable. And along the top, my quizzes tool might be here, but for me and for our course that we're using today, it's nestled in this assessments tile. So if I click here, I can go to quizzes, and that is how I'm brought into the quizzes tool. So before I show you how to make a quiz, you can see that I already have one here created. I want to jump right into the question library because this is a great space to, again, as I mentioned, create your questions. So if I click on the question library, I'm brought into the tool, and you can see that I've already created a unit here, and that's a section that I've created by clicking new section, and you can create all sorts of different sections. Maybe you want to create them by unit, maybe you want to create them by week or by topic. You can also create questions right at the top level, but sections are an awesome opportunity to help facilitate some of that organization. So I'm going to jump into my unit 1. And I'm also going to jump into the section that I've made called Mars. And you can see that I've already gone in here and I've created a bunch of different questions. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to show you how to create a section and also how to create a question. And then we're going to go ahead and pull it into a quiz. So I'm going to start by creating a new section, and I'm going to call it just Earth. And that's all I need to create that section. So I'll click save, and here's my section that I've created called Earth. And so now here is where I'm going to start adding my questions. So as you can see, there's so many different types of questions available in Brightspace. There's true and false, there's multiple choice, multi-select, written response, and the list goes on. There's even some math-based questions at the bottom. So I'm just going to create a multiple choice question, and it brings me to my question creation tool. This is a multiple choice question, and I'm just going to type, how many moons does Earth have? And we know that the answer is 1, but I'm going to add some other options here. And I don't need to add all 4, but I can if I wish to. I'm going to select that 1 is the right answer. And at the top, I want to call out that you have some other options. This is all that's necessary to create a question. I can click save as it is right now. I can preview it along the right. I can randomize the answer order. Maybe I don't want it to appear, 1, 3, 4, 2 for everyone. But I can also open up some options such as add a hint. There's an option for your quizzes to allow hints to students if that's what you wish to add to prompt them. Or I can add feedback. And if a student selects one of these answers, at the end when they get their quiz results, there'll be feedback specific to the choice that they've made. So I'm going to deselect those options and just keep it really simple here. And I'm going to click save. And it shows me my question that I've created in that section. So that's everything that I wanted to show in question library. And we're going to use some of the questions that I've already created in my Mars section. You can see there's a variety of them, and we're going to go and make a quiz. So I'm going to click done editing questions, and it'll take me back to my main quizzes tool. So I'm going to create a new quiz, and I want it to be a pop quiz with just 2 questions out of the several possible questions I've created about Mars. So I'm going to create new quiz. I'm going to call it Mars Pop Quiz. And I'm going to add some questions. So I gave my quiz a title, and I'm going to go here and I'm going to click add/edit questions. So it's here that I can click and it brings me to this screen. I have the ability to create a new question here, but we know that we've already created the questions that we want in the question library. So I want to create a question pool. I'll call the pool Mars. That works for me. I'm going to say 2 questions, 1 point per question. And here I'm going to browse the question library to pick the pool of questions that I wanted pulling from. So I can go into my unit, I'll select all of my Mars questions, and I will import them. So now it'll pick 2 random ones for each student, and I can click save. And then it's saved successfully. It's prompting me at the bottom, and I can go back to the settings for the quiz. Now you can see that it's pulling 2 random questions, and I'll be able to preview this, and I'll show you that in a moment. So that's all that's necessary to make this pop quiz. I could click save and close right now and make this quiz visible and it would be ready to go. But I want to call it now that maybe it's not just a pop quiz, maybe it's an end of unit quiz, maybe it's a final test and you want to take it to the next level. I'll show you some options here that you can do to make that available. So here is allow hints. You saw that when we created our quiz, you were able to add a hint. And so if that's something that you want to allow, you can select that. You can disable right click, and this is good because it'll prevent students from being able to right click and print out the questions or navigate it in a way that won't be appropriate for the nature of the assessment. And then you can also choose to disable email, instant messages, or alerts within Brightspace to sort of limit some of the distractions that can come while performing an assessment. At the bottom here, because it's here, I'll call out that you can add a notification email. So if you typed your email here, you would get an email reminder every time a student completed a quiz. So that's just something I'll call out there. If I scroll up to the top, another way to add some layers of restrictions are up in the restrictions tab. And here is where you can unhide it from users, a reminder that everything we create in Brightspace is not visible to the users until you're ready. I'm just making this quiz, so I'm not quite ready for my students to see it. You can set a due date. You can set an availability. Maybe you only want the quiz to become available when you get to that unit, and then you don't want it to be available when the unit is over. You can add release conditions. You can add a password here. Maybe it's a bonus quiz and you're going to say a password in class. And if you, get the password, then you're able to do the quiz. That's an example of that. So if you want your quiz to require a password, you can put that in there. IP restriction, again, if maybe you want the quiz to be taken from a certain spot or in class and you know that information, you can add it there. By default, the time limit is just a recommended time limit of 2 hours. But you could change this to maybe an enforced time limit where you only want them to spend, 10 minutes on this quiz, and then you can give them special access. So I'm going to save and close this, and I want to show you how you can preview this assessment and see what it might look like to a student. So in my quizzes tool, I can click down and I can preview. So now it's bringing me to a view that a student would see when they clicked on the quiz. Here's the instructions, and then I'm able to start the quiz. And you can see that it's chosen just 2 of the different questions that were available about Mars. Even though I made these questions, I can't remember the answer. So I will just select my selections and I will submit the quiz. And there we go. So here, this is a submission view, and I'll talk about this quickly as well. By default, the student just sees this screen. They don't see the answers they got right away. They don't see any information about that, but you're able to adjust that, and I can show you that quickly. If I exit this preview here, I'll go back into the settings of this quiz, which I can do by selecting the down arrow, clicking edit, and it's up here in submission views. So by default, it's not showing them the questions, and that is it. So I can either change this default view or add an additional view. Let me just click into default view for simplicity. This is the message that they see when they complete the quiz, and you can change this to whatever you want. Maybe you want to say congrats on completing unit 2. And then by default, it's not showing them any information about the questions as soon as they complete it, but you could change it so that they can. Maybe you want them to see the questions that they answered correctly or incorrectly. It's left by default at this because this is a good option. So show all questions with user responses, all the ones that they answered. And then here you can check if you want them to see the answers right away, depending on what kind of assessment it would be. So I'm going to cancel that now and not save my settings. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the top level of my quizzes tool. And we've talked about creating some things in the question library, about creating a quiz. And so I want to show you how you can assess a quiz. Maybe a student has completed a quiz and you want to go ahead and mark it. So this Mars fact quiz is one that I've already done. I've already had a student submit. And so I'll show you how to do that now. There's various places you can go to see pending work and pending things to be marked. You can go into Quick Eval at your organization level. I showed you that notification email earlier. You can set that up and that can be a way to notify you. You can go to your gradebook. You can also come right to the quizzes tool. So maybe I know that a student has submitted. I have 0 out of 1 published. So that means the student hasn't, their feedback hasn't been published yet. So I'm going to click on the down arrow and I'm going to click grade. And here we can see Ashley student has done her attempt. Right now it's a grade of 0 because I haven't marked it yet. So I'm going to click on that attempt. I'm going to read her questions and she's gotten everything right. So I can give her a mark of 5. I can expand and type some feedback. And that's everything. When I click publish at the bottom right here, it will give her a notification and show her that she's got 100% on this quiz. I could also save this as a draft if I wasn't quite ready to publish that to her. I could go back and then I could choose to publish the feedback later. Or maybe I have a bunch of student submissions and I don't want them to just get their answers back one by one. I want to do them all at the same time. So I could go ahead, save all of them as drafts and then select all of them if there was a large list here, and I could click publish feedback. And it'll remind me that, again, when I click this, users will receive that feedback on publishing. And I say, yes, that's okay. And now you can see her grade has been updated. Ashley's been sent a notification and the quiz has been submitted and marked successfully. So that concludes the live demo. Remember, we'll have a question period at the end. My team members will be here to walk through more things in the platform. For the time being, I'm going to jump back in and just wrap up our slide deck. So again, our learning objectives that we covered. Today, we talked about navigating and using the question library, creating a quiz and adding a pool, adjusting the settings for different type of assessments, and grading a quiz. I want to call out that it's almost June, and so we have 3 webinars happening in June that we would love you to attend. They all start at 4 p.m. Eastern time, and we'll have tips and tricks of rubrics, students tracking their work, using Brightspace for early learners, and that's going to be a panel guest webinar. So that'll be a great one to check out. Here are some resources. At the bottom, this is a specific one about the question library. That's really helpful. And again, all of these links will be clickable when you have the chance to download the slides from the website in a couple days' time. And that concludes the official part of today's webinar. And at this time, I would love my team members to join me and we can field some questions.
Thank you, Sarah. That was great. So we do have one question here right now. So the question is from Judy. While students are writing a quiz and they notice that I've made a mistake, I'm not allowed to make changes. Is there a way to make those changes so that they take effect immediately, so that they can change their answers rather than allowing them special access to redo the quiz? So I think the question is, if students are mid-quiz and the teacher may have made a mistake on the quiz, is there a way for the teacher to edit that quiz and have those changes be in effect right away as students are in the quiz?
Right. I think from my knowledge of the quiz tool, that if a student is currently in it, I don't think it can be changed immediately because there's like multiple users inside of the quiz. Even if a student has already completed it, because like I've done, test ones and it'll say like, certain settings can't be adjusted because a student has already completed it with those settings. So I don't think that's possible. Maybe some of my team members know how to do that. But
no, I believe that's correct. Once the quiz has been started by students, it locks it down. So unfortunately at this time, there's not a way to change that mid-quiz. Sarah, there's another question here. Could you show how to write an arithmetic 2+2 question, or do we have any resources for this? So can you show maybe how we can do some math questions within the question library and the quiz tool?
Yeah, definitely. And there definitely are resources on this. Let me just end this and go back here. Let's go to the question library because that's a great spot to make our questions. Let's just do it from the top level. So arithmetic, 2+2, there's our example. title, optional, points, difficulty. I think it's just, yeah, this question text. So it's you that can type it out. You can insert an image, you can insert alternate text, a formula. I guess you can test them here, answer precision, tolerance. So there's all kinds of different, options for arithmetic questions. You can talk about units. You can see if it's case sensitive or case insensitive. That might be good if it's like, using different variables that you would define down here. So definitely we can point you to like a resource that might be good. And maybe I'll add that to the slide deck at the end, unless one of my team members wants to find one on the fly now.
Yeah, there is one I'm thinking of that, Frank, I will grab the link for and post it in the chat. It's a webinar that I believe we had in January about using Brightspace for science and math. So hopefully there's some tips and tricks within there, but we can also add some further resources about that into the slides.
And you know what? I think I typed in the question text. I think it's down here. Someone prompted me, but I think it's the formula that you would actually write the question. That's a good question that I haven't explored much into the math ones. Any other questions about some of the things we ran through? I know we covered a lot in a brief amount of time here, but there's all sorts of elements to the quizzing tool. I see Kathy's question about, should you start by writing questions in the library or just write the quiz? So it is possible to, just create a quiz and create questions from there. And that is definitely possible. And depending on your course needs, that might be sufficient. The question library is good if you might have large volumes of questions, or if you already have your questions categorized and want to upload them there. There's the ability to make those different sections by topic. So if you want to just like add all your questions at the beginning of the year, that would be the best spot to do it. And then you can just create your quizzes later. But it depends on preference, but definitely the question library is a great way to get that top level organization up and running at the beginning of the year.
Thank you, Sarah. That's great. I see we do have someone with their hand up. Jacob, if you'd like, I can take you off of mute and you can ask your questions out loud, or if you'd like, you can put them into the Q&A. So I will take you off mute just in case that is what you would like.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask, you will send the slides to us, or we'll have to look it up somewhere else? The presentation will be emailed to us, or?
Oh, sorry, for today's presentation?
Yes, please.
Yes. So we will send an email following today. Sometimes it takes our team a couple of days. So hopefully by Thursday, the slides and the video in a YouTube format will be ready. And then we will send an email out to you directly with the link to the slides as well as the YouTube video. And you can also check out the same website that you registered for today's session to watch the recording later. But yes, it will be sent directly to you.
Thank you very much. And sorry, one more question. Those library that the presenter was talking about, you can bring in questions from outside test banks as well, or you have to create those?
So you can create the questions one by one, which is what we went over today, but you can also import a file, and it has to be a specific file. So this is like, there's a certain Excel file that you can fill out. Let's say you just like already have an Excel file of your questions, or they're available in that format. If it's in the right format, you'll be able to upload them in that way. But as far as a test bank, or like if it was like a textbook or other, that would be a different type of integration. But the importing refers mostly to an Excel document that you're able to upload.
Thank you very much.
I just see there's another comment about when you go to quizzes after teaching a course a few times, you may have many quizzes. Is there a way to organize all the quizzes?
Yeah, so there is, and Bridget, I'm thinking of sections or categories. If you have a different
Yes, that's what I was just going to suggest making sure that when you do the question library, you put everything into the larger section and then the questions within it, so that it's further organized that way. But yeah, Sarah, if you want to show off sections as well, that'd be great.
Or yeah, or even like for when you look at your list of quizzes, so you can like edit categories here. I don't have it, they're not categorized any right now, like they're just in a big list here. But yeah, let's say you have like, 3 unit 2 quizzes, or maybe your course is even like, you have multiple subjects within one Brightspace course. You're able to add some categories here. And then when you create a quiz, you can add them to a category. So if I like edited this quiz, for example, I could add categories and then they would be shown in that way with like headings, quiz, heading. So that's one way of organizing it.
Also, Sarah, if you'd like, I can share my screen and show just how you can pull from previous courses, which might help that issue there. So I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, so here I am just in my course. Just something I want to note is that what I'm about to show you might not have the ability to do. If you don't, please contact your Brightspace administrator or contact us and we can get you some help there. So let's say you taught grade 9 English last year, you have a course for that and you are now teaching grade 9 English again. Rather than remaking those quizzes and you just want to pull them in, you can go into your course admin tool in your nav bar. I'm going to go to import, export, copy components. And you will have some options here. You should have the option for import, export, copy. The only thing that you might not have the option to do, depending on your district, is this search for offering button, which I'm going to show here. So search for offering is going to bring up a search option where I can search different courses. So let's say I taught a course called General Webinar Series. I don't think that's what your course would be called, but whatever the course that you're looking for was called, you can add that. And then you have the option to either copy all of the components or select the components. So if you just wanted to pull in quizzes, you're going to click select components. Just ignore this for me because this is a test environment. I've done this before. If you haven't done it before, you won't get that notification. And then I'm going to go down to question library here. You can see I have quizzes and question library. You can pull in both of them. You can also go down to individual items if you would like to. I can go to continue and I can expand this out here. So I can see that I have the unit 1 question stuff here. So I can pull in just Earth if I would like to. And then also my quizzes here, maybe just Mars pop quiz, can pull that in. If there are dates attached to it, you can modify these and offset them based on your dates needed, but you can also just select finish. And then you'll see it is working there for me. So this just prevents you from needing to remake the course. You can just pull it right in there if you have it within the question library. Perfect. So now that has finished, so I can go over to my quizzes here. And I can see my Mars pop quiz is there. And if I go to my question library, I have my unit 1 that we pulled in as well.
Thanks for showing that, Bridget, because yeah, if you build out a gigantic question library, it's nice to be able to reuse it year after year. So it's work that you only have to do once. Any other questions in our last couple minutes here? Anything maybe we can show again, maybe something we've already shown, or a question you have about something moving forward? I see. Let me share my screen again. I see a question here about help feature. There's all kinds of different resources that we'll send out in the slide deck after this, but at various points in the platform, there are different help buttons, or even on some of the even on some of the things, there's different question mark icons that will explain some of what's being asked. So for example, when this thing talks about disable email, instant messages, and alerts, we can talk here and it'll say, if you turn this option on, users cannot access the email or instant messages tools or their alerts if they have a quiz attempt in progress, or the notification email. It'll talk about that, how that email address will receive a message anytime the user has completed a quiz. So that's a great way, like right in the platform, that there's different help features, but also our Brightspace community, our Brightspace tutorials page on YouTube. Those are all great resources to walk through many of the workflows that we've gone through today. Bridget and team, I don't know if you have anything else to add or comment on help.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. The community is always a great place to go for some additional help. Also, if you have questions about the webinar today, I know we went through things rather quickly, please, again, you can email us at successcoach@d2l.com. And there's just one more question. I think we can, not sure if I missed this at the beginning. Once you have completed your quiz, how is the linked quiz inserted into the course?
So here's my quiz tool, and this is the quiz that I already had created. This is a quiz that I just created in our webinar today, and you can see that this like eye icon is showing that it's hidden. It's not visible to users quite yet, but all I have to do to make that possible and for it to be linked in the course essentially is to go down and click make visible to users. So then students will be able to come here, go to assessments, go to quizzes, and they'll be able to see the list of quizzes available to them by due date. I mean, another way you can quick link it that we've gone over in some other webinars are maybe adding it to the activity feed or linking it in the announcements tool, but it will live in the course for students once you make it visible to them. All right, I think that will conclude our session for today. Bridget, did you have anything to mention before?
No, that sounds great. Thank you so much for doing this, Sarah. And again, any additional questions that you have, please send them to our email.
Yes, absolutely. And let me share this. Again, it's just successcoaches@d2l.com, and that'll be in the slide deck. So yeah, any additional questions that you have after today, you'll be able to see them there. And thanks everyone for coming. We hope to see you at some of our June webinars. Bye now.